Good evening. We have a couple of meetings actually this evening. We have a special board meeting that was actually supposed to start at 6:55 on one item that was added on an emergency basis 24 hours ago just to get resolved, and then we'll move on to our regular meeting agenda. So to start the special meeting, acceptance of the open session agenda for the special meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval to accept the agenda.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and since this is a special board meeting, public comment needs to only be on this one particular item. Do we have any speaker cards?
I do not know.
Okay. Then item 4.0, 4.1, consideration of approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Measure J Traffic Congestion Relief Agency, doing business as Traffics, and San Ramon Valley Unified School District regarding the expectations and responsibilities associated with the implementation of the Traffic's student transportation service. And this is a memorandum of understanding. Do we have the staff report at all on this? Anything to say about what this is?
This is just the annual memorandum of understanding that we redo every year between Traffics and the school district to make sure that everything is up to date and that all of the requirements are outlined for both agencies, because it is its own agency and we are, of course, our own agency. We memorialize that in the MOU.
Right, and I understand we have two members of our board that sit on the Traffic's board of directors, and my understanding is the MOU is similar in nature to our previous MOU as well.
Yes.
So it's just updating for this school year.
Correct.
If there's no questions or comments from the board, can I have a motion to approve the MOU?
So moved. I second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
And with that, we will adjourn the special board meeting, and I will call our regular board meeting of the Board of Education of San Ramon Valley Unified School District to order for today, August 16th. Can we all please rise to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you for joining us this evening for our regular meeting. Would like to start by having our board members introduce themselves. I'll start with our student board member.
Hi, my name is Anya Iapen. I'm currently serving as a student board member to the SRVUSD district.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Susanna Ordway for San Ramon Area 4.
Good evening, everybody. Shelley Clark, Area 2.
Hi, I'm Laura Bratt with Area 3.
Hi, Rachel Hurd, Area 5.
And Ken Mintz, board president, Area 1. Moving on, actions taken in closed session. We do have one action to report out, and that was approval of Mona Keeler, effective August 8th as assistant principal at Iron Horse Middle School. That vote was unanimous, 5-0. Moving on to acceptance of minutes, we have the minutes from June 14th, June 30th, and July 21st. Ask the board if there's any updates, omissions, corrections. If not, can we handle this as a single vote?
I'll make a motion to accept all the minutes as submitted.
Second. The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 8.1 is acceptance of the open session agenda. Can I have a motion for acceptance, please?
So moved.
Second. The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote, Student Board Member Iapen,
Aye.
Board Member Ordway,
Aye.
Board Member Clark,
Aye.
Board Member Bratt,
Aye.
Board Member Hurd,
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
On 8.2, approval of consent agenda. For those in the audience, consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and are handled by a single vote without a lot of discussion unless called for to be treated as individual items. Board members, anyone wish to pull something from the consent agenda? Staff, everyone okay? Anyone from the audience? I have no speaker cards. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move to motion.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote, Student Board Member Iapen,
Aye.
Board Member Ordway,
Aye.
Board Member Clark,
Aye.
Board Member Bratt,
Aye.
Board Member Hurd,
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9.0, reports to the board. 9.1 is student recognition. And I'm real pleased this evening to recognize a couple of our students. And I believe they're both here with us. We have, and I apologize if I don't get your name right, you can help correct me. Aditi Sharma and Mekhana Balaharjuni. Close enough? Would you please step up to the podium for a minute? We're really, really pleased to have these two students be with us this evening. I know it's early in the school year. You probably have a lot of things going on. Aditi is from Doherty Valley High School, and Mekhana is from California High School. And these two students were selected by State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, as two of the 4 California delegates to attend the annual National Youth Science Camp. Now, what's really something is not only just 2 of 4 from the state of California, but they're 2 of the 120 top science students across the United States and 12 Western Hemisphere nations to be selected for this honor. I'm not going to go into a lot of the detail about it, but maybe you can share a little bit of information, if you wouldn't mind, about what this means to you.
Yeah, sure, I can go. It was a really great experience because we not only were given the opportunity to meet other young people like us who are interested in science, but we had the opportunity to hear from other professionals, not only in our fields, but from many other fields. And I thought that was a really great experience. There was one bad thing about the camp. It was too short.
Too short.
Other than that, it was a great experience. I think Aditi can also speak more about that.
I think I'm going to second every single thing that Meghna said. It was a beautiful experience. Way too short. And I do want to add the fact that the camp emphasized one important thing. And that was, regardless of where you are in science, whether you're someone who's just starting out, whether you're someone who's done it for years, maybe, like someone like me who's more of a beginner in sciences, even though I've loved sciences for a while, they made me feel very counted as a beginner, where I could learn anything that I wanted. I could join in anywhere. I even got to host my own seminar on paradoxes. I get to share everything that I loved with others and learn other things from other people. It was an incredible thing. So I'm really grateful to, the school district for basically helping us achieve our own sciences. I think Meghna and I can definitely agree on that. I'm very grateful to the state for picking us, and I'm really grateful for the incredible staff at the National Youth Science Camp for giving us this incredible opportunity and nurturing us for 3.5 weeks. Thank you.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah, we really want to thank you for first being here with us this evening and for really representing our community in such an unbelievable way. To really point out first your interest in science and hopefully areas that you're going to continue to excel in, but how you've represented the community through this participation. So if you don't mind, we would like to take a quick picture. And step up. Oh, come on. again, thank you so much for coming this evening. Moving on to item 9.2, Hispanic Heritage Month, 9:15 to 10:15. And Hung Nguyen is going to give us a brief presentation.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent, Assistant Superintendents, staff, students, and community. My name is Hong Nguyen. I'm the Director of Educational Equity. Hispanic Heritage Month takes place between September 15th and October 15th. According to Cesar Chavez, we need to help students and parents cherish and preserve the ethnic and cultural diversity that nourishes and strengthens this community and this nation. Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, the Central and South America. To engage our community, schools can do some of the following. Honor this month and take their school community and make them aware of Hispanic Heritage Month by discussing through communications from the school what they can really do to really honor this month. Encourage librarians to highlight books. I've noticed that when we go into libraries, they actually have different books that are set up to really honor this Heritage Month as well. Engage our classroom staff in reviewing, selecting, and implementing a variety of curricular activities in the classroom so students can see themselves and also learn about other cultures, and also partner with our parent organizations so that way we can find unique ways to bring Hispanic Heritage Month to life for our students. And of course, by learning about differences, it enables students to gain a better understanding of both their own culture as well as cultures of others. We look forward to visiting our school sites in the month of September and October to see how they celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And just one quick point, and it is on our agenda for this evening as well, but the Board of Education does a number of resolutions at the beginning of the school year to cover a lot of these type of events that occur during the year. But then we ask staff to provide us with an update as we're approaching that particular activity or event in order to provide us with some background on how we're planning to actually utilize it as an educational opportunity. Moving on to item 9.3, the SRVUSD strategic direction. And this evening, we're getting a report on the Shared Leadership Board.
Thank you, President Mintz. Good evening, trustees. I'm here this evening to provide an update on our strategic direction, shared leadership, and our plan for the 22-23 school year. As you well know, we have 6 strategic directions that are built on the foundation of our academic excellence and are broadening the definition of our success. We have 6 strategic directions, as I mentioned, and the one I'll be speaking about tonight is shared leadership. Shared leadership is a primary tenet of one of our strategic directions. It's the opportunity for us to create the conditions to build a culture of trust and shared responsibilities with our students, staff, and families. Okay, that slide was in there twice, I apologize. The strategic direction, shared leadership, has 3 primary goals. Goal number 1 is to cultivate a culture of collective responsibility and investment in the success of all of our students. Goal number 2 under this shared leadership direction is to engage collaboratively in decision-making with staff, parents, and with students. And goal number 3 is to create space to grow and nourish our leaders. This evening, I wanted to talk about some of the strategies, actions, and measurements we are utilizing to plan out our direction for shared leadership for the year. Our first strategy we've established is to increase student voice. To increase student voice in all areas of our decision-making, particularly the voice of our underrepresented students. Some of the actions that we plan on taking to reach this goal are to let our students share with us their experiences through the Healthy Kids Survey, California Healthy Kids Survey, and through student voice surveys that we conduct at the end of each of our advisory committees. Second, we expand on the use of deep learning strategies for our students. We want them to have more voice and choice within their current classroom curriculum. We also want to create student advisory committees so we can meet with students more frequently to hear their opinions. The way we plan on measuring the increased student voice is by doing regular classroom walkthroughs and implementing student voice surveys. The next strategy we have established is community engagement. Community engagement is where we really want our leaders to engage our parents, our students, and staff with specific topics surrounding their school and district goals. Some of the actions we plan to use to measure this goal is to increase parent and student participation in our decision-making processes. We want to create more opportunities for our parents to co-design with us around what's happening on our campuses. And one of the ways we plan to measure community engagement is the development of several instruments around surveys for our parents, students, and community members that we're currently in the process of developing. We want to support our leaders in having on-the-ground conversations with their parent communities as well to build community engagement within their own school sites. And last, we want to grow and nourish our leaders. This is one of my most exciting plans as part of this shared leadership directions that I'm here to share with you tonight. And it's really the creation of a leadership development plan. The opportunity to really build, broaden, and grow qualified candidates for management positions. We're in the preliminary stages of creating a program to incentivize current teacher leaders who are interested in getting a preliminary administrative credential, and we're working to support them to do that. We want to measure our success of this program by how many people actually enroll, complete the program, and ultimately end up as a leader in one of our school sites. For our new and existing leaders, we're very excited to provide leadership training specific to San Ramon's philosophies, programs, and procedures. We want to collaborate with our principals to provide opportunities that are new and different for them, but also expand their knowledge base. We plan on doing this through quarterly leadership symposia, leadership book clubs, feedback sessions, and deeper professional development. It's a lot of what our principals have been asking for. To measure this, we'll be asking our new and existing leaders to provide feedback after each of our professional developments to see if we have met their needs in the areas that they have provided us that they wanted professional development on. With that, I can take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Christine. Board members, any comments or questions?
How would you go about identifying or recruiting people into the leadership program?
Absolutely, that's a question. Thank you. We're in the process of developing exactly what the intricacies would be around how candidates would be selected. We want to partner with our union colleagues and our HR department to really look at what's the best way to select candidates. We're thinking about potentially an application and interview process, but obviously expanding the opportunity to all teacher leaders in our district who are interested in potentially navigating this opportunity.
I'm just curious, Christy, that besides the Healthy Kids survey, you had mentioned student voice surveys.
Yes.
What do those look like? Are you developing internally or?
Yes. So I want to give a huge shout out to our Executive Director Debbie Pettish and our coordinators. A lot of the feedback we got last year was around students' voice and choice, things they were experiencing in the classroom. So what we'd like to do is bring our students together for student advisory groups, be able to really collaborate with them, listen, hear them, and then consistently at the end of each of those opportunities where we gather to ask them 3 or 4 questions to really give us feedback around our goals in shared leadership and ultimately if we've met their goals through this means of communication. So we do plan on developing those tools, and we want to do that collaboratively, not only with our principal leaders, but with our students too, so that we're asking the right questions.
And if I could just add, and Debbie will be talking about this in the next report, so I'll go macro for a minute. We need to put a focus on qualitative research and feedback as well as quantitative. We're very used to quantitative. And sometimes creating a tool where you ask the same 4 questions that students can take in 3 minutes and gather the data electronically every time we have students in a room helping us think through something provides a really rich data set. And so that's the piece. We're not talking about some long survey that takes 10, 20, 30 minutes to fill out. We're talking about something used every time that takes 3 minutes, same questions, so we can see if we're improving. And then we'd always offer opportunities for students, or if it's another partner, parents, what have you, to give us some suggestions. But they don't have to give us suggestions if they want to answer 4 quick questions and hit submit. So that's the idea that we are almost there. We'll have more details soon, but that's the part that we are finalizing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I would just make a quick comment first. Christine, thank you very much for your report. And I think we all look forward to hearing much more in terms of moving further in this direction. I think it's particularly important that we're building kind of the scaffolding for employees in terms of really meeting their interests in terms of their careers, and being able to say, you know, I'm ready for that next step, and finding ways of getting, helping them to achieve those goals, because it satisfies their interests and needs, but also the district and the communities by giving those kind of opportunities, and mixing that with, you know, the ability to find and retain others who would also serve us well going forward. But finding that nice balance between those two is going to be critical. The one other thing I wanted to just comment on is the student voice piece. We all had an opportunity, most of us were at the management retreat a couple weeks ago, where we had a panel of students speaking from their position to all of our administrators. And it was really incredible to really open up that student voice and get a sense for where they're coming from, rather than, you know, from us on high just directing and dictating everything. So any way that we can continue to expand upon that through our student board member, through the student senate that was set up last year, I think that's a great foundation for continuing to build on that, that voice going forward, as well as with their parents and the community at large. So thank you very much. Our next presentation, I think we have Debbie Pettish coming up to speak about the district data dashboard.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Malloy, and Cabinet. All right, thank you so much for having me here this evening. As you all know, and as Christine discussed, we of course had a strategic plan that was adopted by all of you a little over a year ago. And in that plan are of course 6 strategic directions, and along with directions are Thank you. Thank you, Logan. So finally, it supports the organization in really focusing in on the things that are most important in that given year. So as with any district, there's always so much going on that we really feel that a data dashboard would allow us to really hone in on what's most important in that particular year, and really streamline our strategies and our assessment methods towards those goals. So we are proposing the creation of this dashboard. And tonight, really our goal is to bring you information about the contents of the dashboard, what it would entail. And then based on your input at the September meeting, come back with an actual draft of the dashboard so that you can give additional feedback. So what we're proposing tonight is that our dashboard has 3 overarching categories. And as you can see, those are directly linked to our 6 strategic directions. So the three categories are deep learning and innovation, equitable, inclusive, and safe learning environments, and then organizational excellence. And then each category has 3 dimensions, and each dimension has 1 or 2 indicators. And so that will make probably a little bit more sense on the subsequent slides. But what's important to note is that in the dashboard, each indicator would have a baseline measurement and a target measurement. So that is, again, not what I'm bringing here tonight, but would bring back at the September meeting, depending on our discussion on the contents of the dashboard. So each indicator would have a baseline, of course, where we are now, and then a target of where we want to be by the end of the year. So this is what we are proposing for category 1, deep learning and innovation. Again, you can see that it has 3 dimensions, and then each dimension has 1 or 2 indicators. And again, those indicators or those bullet points would then be associated with a baseline measurement as well as a target measurement. So if you look at dimension 2, for example, English language arts, one of the indicators is increase the percentage of students meeting or exceeding standards on our state standardized exam, CASP. And that, of course, would have a baseline, how we're doing this year, and then where we want to get on the next administration of CASP. And you can see that we have other dimensions there, including college and career readiness and mathematics. So category 2, equitable, inclusive, and safe learning environments. You can see that we have 3 dimensions. So that is social, emotional well-being. So overall, improve student social, emotional well-being as measured by the Healthy Kids Survey. Christine touched some on student voice and agency. So of course you see it reflected here in the dashboard with regard to the percentage of students really feeling like they're able to meaningfully participate in their education, as well as creating inclusive classroom experiences that allow for that student choice and voice. And then dimension 3, as we've talked about here a number of times, diversifying our staff. And then category 3, it really encompasses those 3 strategic directions of stewardship of resources, culture of responsiveness, and shared leadership. So you can see in there again some of the information that Christine shared in terms of shared leadership. That's definitely something that we want to measure on this dashboard. So we have a variety of measurement tools that we're looking at right now. Of course, we have CASP, our California Healthy Kids. We have our screener assessments that we're really, really proud of. So it's not that we only want to be looking at our standardized assessments or our healthy kids. We really want to be measuring how we're doing along the way. And that is what our social emotional and our academic screeners allow us to do, to see how kids are faring, whether our strategies are working or not, and how we may need to readjust. We are in the process of developing a responsiveness or shared leadership survey that would go out to our community and to our staff in order to measure some of the indicators, especially under the organizational excellence category. Dr. Malloy talked about the importance of qualitative data. So getting into classrooms, whether it's district staff, administrators, alongside our Servia partners to really do classroom observations, collect that qualitative data, look at the extent to which, for example, we're seeing those deep learning strategies integrated into our classroom experiences. We talked tonight about exit surveys and then again, additional state accountability measures. I do want to mention that we still have the State of California dashboard. That is still a very important tool that we will continue using. It, of course, does not focus on our specific district goals, which is why we're proposing the creation of this dashboard. So next steps, of course, are to get your input, make modifications, changes based on that input, and then present an updated dashboard at the September board meeting.
And the only thing I'd like to add, because I think Christine and Debbie and their teams will not say this, I hope our board realizes, that I trust that you do, that this has been an important strategic process that's taken a while, and we're now moving to the next step, 30,000 feet to the ground. We had the high-level commitments collaboratively created. We've moved towards goals that people can understand. We're working really hard to ensure that our community is engaging with us. And now, of course, in order to show that we are improving, we're being exceptionally clear about measurement. But what's so important, and it comes right from the implementation science research, is there will be no improvement if you try to improve too much. So what we're going to be sure to do is not to overwhelm the system with measuring things, but to leverage already existing tools in really strategic ways, and to develop some new tools, but as you heard us describe in the last report, without it being onerous to participate in, so that we can continue in an annual way, or in other cases, more ongoing way, bring forward clear data of improvement based upon what you have asked us to focus on. And then our community can see that, yes, indeed, that we will be by September stating things like this. By June 2023, we expect the following things to happen with this data set. So in other words, in educational language and in business world, it's called SMART goals. It's that kind of idea that we're driving towards. And you'll see that soon, but we thought we would do this in 2 steps just to be sure that we are on the right path from your perspective based upon the directions you've given. And I just want to thank Debbie and Christine and team, because it's a lot of important work. And I, as the superintendent, am very grateful to everything that's happened.
Thank you. Board members, Rachel.
Thank you for that extra explanation. That kind of answered some of the questions I already had. But Debbie, can you go back to the one with the equitable, inclusive, and safe learning environments where it showed dimension 1? I'm familiar with the California Healthy Kids Survey having indicators looking at, do kids feel like they have meaningful participation? I remember that kind of subset of questions where you would get that kind of an answer. But do they now have something that is kind of a composite that would tell us about social emotional, or would we be building that ourselves from the data?
They have very specific questions like the meaningful participation, but then they also have overarching categories like overall social emotional well-being that are attached to the Healthy Kids Survey.
So you'll be able to just use that. You won't have to build it yourself.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Will you be presenting demographics as well so that we can see how specific groups are impacted by the specific dimensions and indicators?
That is very important to us. We put it explicitly in the, decreased academic disparities for underrepresented students on CASP. This is something that we already do with regard to our Healthy Kids Survey and our SUP screener, but it's something that we can definitely add to the dashboard for that component as well.
I think that just to add to what Debbie's saying, because the disproportionate data we already receive academically has really taught us some great things, and because if students choose to identify in some of the other tools, we have that data, there is choice there, we can simply do the same kind of thing with the data that we have on the social emotional side as well.
Absolutely.
Sean? Go ahead, Sean.
I just had a question about the screeners. What kind of screeners do you use?
So we use overall for our academic screener, we use something called FastBridge, and we've been using it for a couple of years now, and it's been really, really helpful in supporting us in kind of screening students who may be having some academic challenges on particular standards, and then grouping those students so that we can provide them intervention support. So FastBridge, we now for K2 reading, many of our schools are using our DIBBLE screener. And then for our social emotional wellness, we have what we call our social emotional well-being or SUB screener that Jessica Colson, one of our coordinators, developed alongside UC Berkeley for us to use that we give 3 times per year.
So that's what I was going to ask. How many times are students exposed to this, or do you identify certain students that need this, or how?
All students are screened for academic and social emotional, and then they're screened 3 times per year so that we can have an indication of not only what individual students need in terms of their learning or their social emotional well-being, but also academically what they need. So not only from a district perspective, but also from an individual student perspective.
I just wanted to thank you, the whole team, for this because I think it's a great idea. This dashboard, it's a San Ramon Valley, right, unified dashboard because I loved, going and checking with the California dashboard and all that, but they don't update. They update once a year, I believe. Yeah, and same thing with the healthy kids. It's only once a year, right? And I think so. That's actually that's my question. Is like, do we have an idea, or is that what we will be giving out input, like how often certain things will be updated on that dashboard?
So I think in order for improvement to be authentic, it needs time. And the reason why we do progress monitoring, which is the more ongoing, is so that those closest to the kids could actually see what's happening, adjust their practice, and then allow for changes to be made. Where dashboards, in my experience, work much more effectively is that we support our staff to do the important work, but we hold the district accountable. So I always say the district sets direction, aligns resources, and supports effort. And then if all of that improvement happens in every classroom, then that district data shows improvement. And then we can work closely if there are any places that need our additional support when we go deeper in the data. But we would see coming here for the most part once a year with what happened, what does the data say, what have we learned, and what are the next steps? By all means, if board members or the community have any other questions about any aspect of it, we'd be happy to answer it. But if we were to come into this space too often, we actually aren't giving the opportunity for all the interventions to make the changes that bring about what we the improvement. So long story short, our proposal is we would be here once a year. We wouldn't do it at one time though. We'd build it into each monthly report. Okay. So you've noticed that we try to do at least one strategic report every month. So that becomes the cycle, October to October, November to November. And that would allow us that year for us to do the work. And then one last thing, we're building in, and you're going to see this in September. Every September, we'll do an annual report, not to provide new information, but to provide highlights of everything that happened so that in one report, in one place, all of it is compiled. So improvement, annual cycle, reporting each month on one pillar, but because the pillars aren't separate, pulling it all back together in a way that allows you and our community to kind of look back on the year, and we will highlight again what was shared throughout. That's our proposal to you.
Okay.
Is that?
Great. Yes.
Anya, do you have any questions, comments?
I think that this is great, especially increasing student voice because that's something that directly kind of ties back to the student community. I think my one question was, I know you mentioned there would be a baseline kind of measure as well as a target measure. So I was wondering if, before you gather like what is happening right now, you would have a target in mind, or you would be basing that target off of kind of the baseline data gathered?
Thank you. Those are great questions. And so we've already kind of been discussing that to a certain extent, but of course have not made any decisions. And so we are looking at the baseline first in order to determine what the target would be.
Yeah, Debbie, just a couple of quick comments. As far as baselines, it's really important that we establish those, but then I think, as Dr. Malloy was suggesting also, that need for continuous improvement so that particularly as we're starting this, we're able to adjust it to make sure that we're measuring the right thing. It's great to have a baseline so you can measure against that baseline over time, but want to make sure we're going forward the right things. A couple of specific points. You mentioned about exit surveys, and I would hope that we're talking about exit surveys not just for students as they move on, but also as we have employees who are moving on for whatever reason, because I think there's a lot of information for us to gain in terms of our practices. If someone moves on to another district or to a different type of job, different profession, that particularly these days where retention is so important, that we know what it is that drives our employees and makes it the best place to work that we'd like it to be. Finally, and it's in your first dimension, when we talk about college and career readiness, I think it's important that we not overlook the career readiness portion of this and data points that really focus the ability of our students to look beyond college or in place of college. You know, we really don't put much emphasis all in our district on the trades, for instance, but I'm sure there are students that would consider it if we put the right kind of emphasis on it. So, you know, as we look more and more to what does it mean to be successful for each and every one of our students, we want to make sure that we're measuring the types of things that really are going to bring us to that point as well. And that's one that I think is going to be important for us to figure out how we get that kind of data, as well as the ones that are key, you know, that have always been key to us, like, you know, AP results and college placement, all that type of thing.
So President Mintz, if I can just offer a thought, Debbie, please clarify if need be. The reason why you see increased use of deep learning strategies in classrooms is because everything you've said about honoring different pathways has to start in what goes on in classrooms, and the measurement there is going to actually be much more observation regarding actually what's happening to get to a different result than a CASP or a Healthy Kids survey that gives us a number. So that's why when we look at Dimension 1, that's going to be much more about how are we utilizing strategies that gets us to that profile of a learner that's still in draft, which is less about a grade in a subject area, which is important, and more about students being thinkers and creators and so forth. That can only be measured by us observing and seeing what strategies are used, what impact it's having, and then on what outcome or what outcomes follow it. So yes, we would like to see a number of our students in different pathways that aren't traditionally held up at this point in San Ramon Valley Unified School District. That would be part of the observation data that we would bring to you. And I'm only taking this time to share that is because I think that this isn't just us. We're just all more comfortable with numbers when we're trying to determine improvement. And what we're going to need to educate everyone on is that doesn't actually measure everything we need to measure. And observation and outcome, qualitative outcomes from that observation will be also brought forward in these reports. Very good.
Yes. One other question. I'm just curious about how, like, our LCAP goals relate to this. Are we considering that accountability, I guess, if you will, with the, you know, with this data dashboard?
Absolutely. They're basically in John Campopiano, who's traditionally led the LCAP, and I've had a lot of conversations about merging these two, because I think that that's what absolutely needs to happen.
Great. Debbie, thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more in September. Moving on to item 9.5, we have a report on communications and community relations plan. Alana Israel Sam.
Good evening, President Mintz, trustees, and Dr. Malloy, and everyone else up at the dais. It is really just such a pleasure to come here tonight and have an opportunity to speak with all of you about our communications and community relations plan and present to you some of the high-level ideas and highlights out of that plan tonight. So we all know that the strategic directions drive our work. We've heard that multiple times tonight. And so as we build on that foundation of academic success and then broaden our definition of what that success is, we want to make sure that through our communications and community relation plans, you know that we are committed to creating the best possible environments for learning where students thrive and succeed because they're safe, included, accepted. And part of that happens through what we do in the Office of Communications and Community Relations. So the plan, of course, focuses on our strategic directions and really reflects on the interconnectedness between the two strategic directions of shared leadership and culture of responsiveness. We must have effective communication that supports a comprehensive communications network that increases awareness and understanding and support for all of our partners, our students, our staff, and the entire community. So Lucky for us in my office, the board really laid the groundwork for this plan through their advocacy and their engagement and work that they did last school year. And as they continue to take the lead, you guide all of us in accomplishing the goals that I'm going to briefly talk about tonight in the plan, which really align our mission and our vision and our strategic directions. So I'm not going to go over every detail tonight of the plan that you had in your packet, but I do want to highlight our strategic goals that we outline. You'll see elsewhere in the plan, if you had a chance to review it, the objectives, the overarching goals, and our guiding principles. And what I want to focus on now is what the plan is truly intended to accomplish. So what are our strategic goals? Number one, to improve and strengthen communications with students and their parents and caregivers. And also, number two, to improve and strengthen communications from the district to all staff and have open communication between us. We want to work to revise, implement, and train all of our partners, which we'll be talking about who those partners are in a moment, on policies and procedures regarding public relations and media relations, really any way that we can help support everyone throughout the district to accomplish their goals. Additionally, strategic goal number four is to maximize awareness, support, and understanding of our strategic directions and our goals, and including outcomes that we're looking for, and then priorities and initiatives that come up throughout the year that we're focusing on, for example, access to excellence. We also finally want to promote and maintain positive and collaborative relationships and partnerships that serve to enhance the educational experience of our students and to build our positive reputation in the community through all the actions that we're going to take. So we're going to talk a little bit about the plan, a couple of the plan highlights. When we think of the strategies that we're going to use, there's a bunch in there. And so I would be up here probably for a good 45 minutes if I was to take you through every single one. So what I decided to do is just pull out a few key ones that I felt were really important and integral to explain tonight. So first, before I go into these quick highlights, I just want to make sure that you took a moment to look at who our partners are, right? And I've delineated those by our internal and our external partners. So who are our internal partners in the plan? That's our students, our staff, our parents, our caregiver volunteers, our San Ramon Valley Education Foundation, our PTA, and then it's also the Board of Education. And it's you, and you're part of that partnership internally. And then we also have our external partners. So those can be everything from our police partners, our liaisons in the city of San Ramon or the town of Danville or the county of Contra Costa, and then many other community partners that you're all very familiar with. So as I go over these examples, you can just think about in your mind, and by looking at some of the more details in the plan, how things like this are going to connect back to different partners in our community. So number one I want to talk about was launching the student news webpage that will mirror our student Instagram. So as you know, last year that was a goal of ours in spring that actually our student board member at the time, Ronit, had brought forward as an idea. We launched that Instagram, and now what we're going to do is look at a way to replicate what we did recently. This is kind of where our idea is. Replicate what we did with that first day of school, so that potentially anything that's posted on the student Instagram will magically, I call it, Tammy does it, but I call it magic, go onto that student webpage. Because we did get some feedback that there's some students emailed us and said, I don't have an Instagram. What am I supposed to do? And so we heard that. We want to make sure that they still get that communication. We want to know from all of our students through the board member, through Student Senate and beyond, how they want to be communicated with, and make sure that they're brought into the fold so that they can know that we care, that we listen, that they take their feedback, we'll report back to them, and doing that through forums, listening tours, and more. Another highlight of the plan is that we want to conduct a survey or a thought exchange to assess communications to all staff and to the students and parents caregivers. So this is going to be something that's different from what Debbie Pettis just presented on, and we certainly don't want to over survey people, but we do want to get a sense. Do you feel like we're communicating too much, not enough? We've really tried to take feedback that we've gotten more informally and tailor our communications over the course of the last year. We also want to just really be able to closely identify major themes and areas of improvement and just continually improve what we're doing. And then finally, and this one's just really fun, we want to continue to update and make improvements to our new web pages. We're so excited about our new website. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. We to initiate and create and launch the San Ramon Valley Unified School District newsroom, which will be a place to share stories similar to the ones we've been sharing on social media, but more broadly and much more accessible for folks who don't have social media. And then it's also a way for folks outside of the district to really connect with us. I just wanted to share, connected with this, that graphic you see up there. It was sort of the brainchild of one of our student content creators. We have 3 or 4, I think, right now that work with Tammy and provide content to us. And we had one of those from Monte Vista High School create a graphic for every single school in the district. So we're able to provide those out. And then it's just helping to improve what we're doing as a part of this. So I just think that's really exciting. So another thing you'll just want to make sure that you noticed in the plan is the responsibility matrix. Understanding what are the deliverables, what are the strategies that we are using, and then who is responsible and who is ultimately accountable for making sure that it happens. We know that we have a collective responsibility to communicate, to engage, and to ensure that we ask for feedback. But then also, in some regards, sometimes more important, ensuring that we actually take that feedback, do something with that, and then report back and say, okay, here's what we did with it, or maybe here's what we couldn't do, right? We were not able to accomplish it. And that sort of loop, that continuous loop is really imperative. Again, we're so fortunate to have the board to lead us in these efforts. And if you look at the matrix, right, the Board of Education is on there, the superintendent, the staff in the communications office, cabinet, and then there's even a category for others because we know that we're going to rely on everyone, all of our partners across the board to know and understand how to use the plan to ensure it's effective and ensure that we meet the goals that we've set forth for ourselves for this school year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alana. Before we move on to board members' comments and questions, we do have a speaker card on this item from Mike Garata.
Among stated missions on page 1 of the Communications and Community Relations Plan is an assertion that SRVUSD will, quote, always communicate transparently in a credible and reliable manner. At page 3, SRVUSD is committed to providing accurate, timely, and relevant information to our students, staff, parents, caregivers, and entire community. Also on page 3, an overarching goal is to engage all partners, among other things, through strategies and structures for open dialogue. If any of those objectives are in fact achieved, that will represent a remarkable turnaround from past practice. Meanwhile, at least 2 more stipulations should be incorporated in the plan. 1, it should be made explicitly clear that the term community includes taxpayers at large. That is, to include the 3/4 of tax-paying district households wherein kids have graduated from the district and moved on, or have left SRVUSD for private schools or homeschooling, or are childless households which nevertheless still pay school taxes. At the bottom of page 4 in your plan, taxpayers at large are conspicuous by their absence in your list of external key partners critical to your communications and community relations goals. Inclusion of all tax-paying households would disappoint the June 14th speaker, who was upset, quote, to see so many non-parents get up and speak to what they think our district should look like. But besides helping fund the district, such taxpayers at large often have specialized knowledge and expertise, including their training, backgrounds, and expertise in matters ranging from curriculum to finance to athletics. Their input should be valued, should be welcomed, and so again, they should explicitly be included throughout your communications and community relations plan. The second needed stipulation is a determination and pledge that the district will provide in timely fashion copies of communications requested under express or implied aegis of the California Public Records Act. An example would be the requests which I filed as long ago as March 21st, i.e. 148 days ago, which still remain unanswered. Without the needed improvements, your communications and community relations plan remains a Potemkin document pretending cosmetically to guarantee credible and reliable transparency, but in fact serving merely as a smokescreen for continued concealment.
Thank you for your comments. I would just point out that throughout the plan, the use of the term community is meant to include everyone who's not involved with the schools as well as those who are. We can be a little bit more explicit about that. Thank you. Board members, other questions or comments?
Yeah, I know that a lot of hard work was put into this, and I think we all appreciate the roadmap that it's giving us in terms of communication. And I believe and am grateful for the opportunity that this will give us to provide greater understanding to our community around, explain better around the why behind how and why we do things, and then also just create more connection. You know, I think some of the feedback that we've gotten in this last year is about that connection and really trying to help to bring people into the conversations that we're having. So I really appreciate this roadmap, if you will. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to second what Laura said. I know that Ken and Laura both worked on this communication plan, and so I want to thank both of them because when we received it from them, it was outstanding, but you and your team have continued to improve it and to make it something that I think is going to be really effective for our community as a whole, taxpayers included, and we want to include everyone, and that's so important as far as us doing community outreach and things like that, that maybe we've never really done that much before. So thank you for all the hard work. I'm excited about the opportunity that's providing for us.
Any other?
I would just third the comment that Laura started, but I think the way it, on one end it started as a board communication plan, but then the way it was integrated with your department's plan for the whole district was really exactly what we were looking for. And I just want to do a shout out about the matrix. I think that's a really helpful way to look at it and a way to in one place put all the strategies. So I just love the intentionality of all of it from all the different responsible parties. So thank you.
Ditto. Did everything. But yes, I'm especially impressed with the responsibility matrix too. It's very clear, but because sometimes, right, we don't know who to go to, and communication is a very complicated and complex thing, and so just putting out there saying this is the person who's responsible for maybe like posting something, right? Yeah, I mean that's a big thing actually. So thank you.
Did you?
I think the plan is great, especially from the student aspect with the webpage. I have seen the Instagram and it's doing great. I'm excited to see what it turns out to be, especially with student input. I personally am not a social media content creator, but I know that there are people in the district who are extraordinarily talented, and I can't wait to see more of it.
Thanks so much, Anya.
Good. And I'll just add, it used to be that we had constant communication a lot through the press. We actually had members of the press who attended our school board meetings in person. And we put a quarterly report into the newspaper as an insert, for instance, let people know in the community about what was going on in our schools. And as newspaper readership has dropped off, moved on to other different types of technologies as vehicles for media, we've lost a lot of those capabilities. It's been, I think, very helpful that we've moved into a territory now where, for instance, our board meeting this evening is being telecast live and also archived. So it's not just a matter of being here in the audience. We appreciate those who are here. However, we have a number of people who are watching these from home right now, or tomorrow people can go on and check. And so that's a positive thing. I just want to make it clear that the details of a communication plan are not just to promote the school district. but really to open a dialogue with the community. It's a two-way street. It really is to get feedback, to be able to ensure that we are providing a level of transparency so the community does know our intentions in terms of our education and what's going on in our schools and how we wish to continue to improve with everyone's participation. So I think this communication plan really moves us in that direction. So I want to thank you and your staff and looking forward to the rollout of the plan as we go forward.
Thanks, Ken. I
Thanks.
do want to make sure I give a special shout out to Tammy Hurley and Kathy McSweeney in the back of the room. They probably don't want me to do that shout out, but we are only all right as good as all the folks who are there right alongside us to make sure we get where we're going. So,
Thanks, Lana.
thank you.
Moving on to item 9.6, public comment on non-agendized items. These comments are limited to 3 minutes. And just a reminder that the board cannot take action or dialogue with you on these items, but believe me, we hear you, and as appropriate, direct things to staff. Again, these are items that are not on the agenda. I have 2 speaker cards. Are there any others in the audience who wish to put in a card on this item? No. Mike Arata.
Speaking of non-response to public records requests, at the April 19th board meeting, I objected to read aloud picture storybooks with homosexual and transgender themes, used even in pre-kindergarten, as part of the perverse program characterized by country club principal Christy Glazer and teacher Corby Saunders as, quote, queering the classroom, unquote. To me, such elementary classroom intrusions look and smell like grooming behavior. Later in the meeting, Mr. Malloy claimed a mandate for pushing such materials into TK through 5 classrooms. Our educators must do this, he said. It's a requirement. Then, after claiming that parents are district partners, he said it actually must be done. So I wrote to him the next day, April 20th, to ask related questions. Since you spoke with such triply amplified certitude, I said, where can I find the mandate you claimed? And if parents are actually partners, can I see your parental notices about classroom use of such materials? Mr. Malloy converted my very simple questions into an official public records request. That was 118 days ago, but I still have no answers. No surprise, I guess, since Mr. Malloy bragged in 2020 about pushing the envelope on LGBTQ issues. In other unfinished business from last year, district materials teach that overt racism directed against whites is okay, while even someone's notion of implicit bias against others, as defined and alleged by those others, is a serious offense. So a fabricated social media post at year's end was enough for Mr. Malloy to amplify the falsified condemnation of Cal High's cheer and stunt team as a supposedly racist incident. In his misleading message, Cal High Racist Incident 5.23.22, Mr. Malloy said SRVUSD had implemented a response to discrimination and hate process. The related handbook says to create a fact sheet about the incident. Don't let misinformation take root in the school or community, it says, because if you're hasty, you may spread misinformation yourself. But that's precisely what Mr. Malloy did himself. So where's the fact sheet, and where does slandering of the Cal High students fit into the communications plan? The district is down some 7,000 students from its 2023 enrollment projection of 2018. So parents, if you don't want your kids to be targeted ideologically or morally, and if your resources permit, you should let them join other students going out the door. If they stay here, you should carefully monitor what goes on in the classrooms, the programs, and with teachers, and to counteract the poison that's so frequently fed to the students here.
Next speaker, Bob Allen.
Hello, my name is Bob Allen, and I'm a mathematics teacher at Cal High, and my pronouns are he, him. As we start this new school year, I look at my class roll of 184 students and rising, and wonder who they are. Why are they in my class? Why are they taking a 4th year of math? Why stats? What are they interested in? What hook can I use to get them interested in statistics? Already in my class, we found statistical evidence that Beyonce wrote her own lyrics. Those of us of a certain age remember the bottle cap promotions when 20-ounce bottles were introduced. The students simulated many, many people buying a soda to see if the sodas won a prize. Later, we'll be tackling jury selection, M&Ms, and yes, the presidential elections of 2016 and 2020. The other important thing I do as a teacher is affirm every child. Straight, gay, Hindu, lesbian, students with IEPs, Muslim, bisexual, trans, Christian, South Asian, Chinese, Taiwanese, students with 504, Mormon, Filipino, Japanese, liberal, conservative, anarchist, and I'm sure I'm forgetting many, many more. This is the community I have been teaching while I've been in the district. I do not have the luxury of declaring which students do not belong. I do not say which students aren't to be seen. I don't decide which students get to see themselves in books or curricular materials. I don't have it with me to say this child or these children are seen as others, are seen as wrong, and should be belittled. I, and I believe every teacher in the SRVUSD, are here to teach your students, all of your students, no matter who they are. We are here to make sure your students learn their academics and to celebrate every student. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other cards, we'll move on to item 9.7, which is Association President's Reports. Tammy.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Casluccio, President of CSEA. We represent a little over 1,000 classified employees in this district, including child nutrition, clerical, see I said that backwards, I have it the right way, clerical, technical, child nutrition, paraeducators, and other service providers. We're happy to have all of our students and staff returning to another great year at SRVUSD. As we start this year, as we have many years, we start the year with many vacancies in child nutrition and paraeducators. We know that HR has been working very hard to get those positions filled, but for us to best serve all of our students, it is imperative that we have those positions filled. So anyone in this room or anyone watching this meeting who knows somebody who wants to start a career, please have them apply for our jobs in our district. We're currently working on sending out a survey to our membership to elicit feedback to prepare us for successor contract negotiations. We are hopeful that we will have our joint sunshine proposal ready for the board meeting to take action at the September board meeting. I have a meeting set up with Zetta Riker, the Director of Child Nutrition, tomorrow for our first of many check-ins. Zetta and I will be setting up regular meetings to make sure we keep in touch and work together with the needs of our employees and students. We are looking forward to hearing the budget presentation on the 45-day revise. Although we've already heard some of this information, it's good information to get again. And we are also looking forward to another year of collaboration and partnership with management, wishing everyone a great school year, and we are all in this together for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Laura Finko.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'd like to start by acknowledging the land we are standing on is that of the Ohlone Nation and the Takan tribe. Take a moment to reflect on those who came before us, their lives and sacrifices, and how we each can and should honor their land. My name is Laura Finko. I'm president of the San Ramon Valley Education Association and the over 1,700 non-managerial certificated personnel in the district. I want to touch on a few things this evening with it being the first board meeting of the new year. First of all, we also are working on our successor agreements. So, Mr. Rajewski, it seems like HR is going to be very busy this year. I'd also like to extend my congratulations to our honored students. As a science teacher, I just beam when I hear about students being so engaged in science, especially young women. So if you're watching, awesome job. Last year, we worked in partnership with management to navigate the ever-changing challenges that presented themselves. We are beginning this year with enthusiasm and excitement about all of the opportunities that await us. As an association, SRVUSD continues to work toward the best class sizes, ensuring our students have the best supports, counselors, nurses, access to mental health professionals, special education ratios that allow each child to excel, and encourage the retention and recruitment of the best educators. This is what we do because as teachers, we are invested in our students. Nearly 98% of the educators, including over 100 of our new hires this year, are members of SRVUSD. Our members understand that when we invest in our students through our membership, our students benefit. With that being said, I need to be very clear because there seems to be some confusion at times. Yes, I am SRVUSD. So is Melinda Daly. But wait, so is Mr. Allen and Ms. Patel and Nurse Rooney and Ms. Judice, Ms. Harder, and in fact, every single teacher, counselor, nurse, school psychologist, social worker, teacher, librarian is SRVUSD. We cannot talk about supporting teachers without understanding that we are SRVUSD. As teachers, as SRVUSD, we have an invested interest in ensuring our students get the best education they can and deserve. Everything we do as an association is focused on how our students' learning experiences can improve. SRVUSD members know that the importance of being united, #for our students, and work on behalf of our school communities. We know that having a strong partnership with our trustees and district management is the pathway in giving our kids the best. This is why as SRVUSD, we reach out to school board candidates to offer our endorsement. Having that open communication from the beginning, even during campaigns, provide for that strong foundational relationship that is necessary for all of us to be able to give our students the educational experience they deserve. That is our goal, and it is only by partnering with those willing to work with us that this goal can be achieved. That is who we are, and it is because of our students we do what we do. Now, I'm kicking off my 35th year as a teacher, having started as an elementary science specialist / high school biology teacher in Hayward. I moved then to San Leandro, where I taught 7th and 9th grade science at John Muir Junior High School before it became a middle school, and I helped transition it to a middle school and taught the first group of 6th graders. I then moved to where I am now and have been since 1994. In my tenure as a teacher, I have had over 5,000 students come through my doors. That is not something that I take lightly, and is what drives me in the work that I do as a SRVUSD member. Yes, our students are very special, and yes, as teachers, we have a special interest to make sure they get the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving on to, I don't believe we have anyone from SEIU, is that correct? Moving on to student board member report. Anya.
Hi, everyone. I'll keep this brief, but over the summer, Risha, the chair of the Student Senate, and I did conduct interviews, and we have accepted all of the members of the Student Senate. We have met twice. I think the first meeting was last Tuesday, which was more introductory in nature. But Mr. Pitzer, the director of technology, did come in, and it was really heartening to see that even on the first meeting, all of the members were able to provide insightful feedback, which is exactly what we hope to keep doing throughout the school year. We also kind of went over some of the basic procedure and how we will be conducting the Student Senate, as well as we introduced the idea of the student chair trainee position. And that'll just be in order to make sure, so Risha founded the Student Senate and she has been chairing it last year and this year, so after she graduates, making sure that it is able to continue in the coming years so that it's able to provide that student voice and perspective to board members and district officials, just so that input is always there. And at our second meeting, we discussed the board agenda, how to go through it, just so I'm able to kind of value the perspectives from all different schools. And I know Dr. Malloy and I touched on this when we met before school started, on just making sure that all schools are valued. I know I go to Doherty Valley High School and I've attended Windermere and Live Oak, but I do want to make sure that every school, beyond just the ones that I'm familiar with, are represented through my voice and the Senate's voice as well. And then next Friday, I will be attending a TA T8 focus group that Ms. Hong Lin set up. I'm really looking forward to that, as well as joining some of the committees that are present in the district. I was discussing with Mr. Campopiano on that as well. But I just wanted to keep that short, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Thank you, Anya. Moving on to item 9.9, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Mintz. I'll start by saying that the beginning of the year is an exciting time where we come back together to focus on helping our students learn. It can be a challenging time while we have to shift our routines over the summer for those who had maybe more relaxed days. And there's always some bumps in the road that we're working through. And so to our community, please know that we are doing our very best to listen to every concern or every question. We're trying to be as responsive as we possibly can, and we're moving as quickly as we can as well. So there's excitement, and there's always some questions along the way, but I'm feeling pretty good about the work that's happening so far, and I'm really excited about the school year to come. Everywhere I've had the chance to share ideas, present. I've been in a number of places with our leadership, with our staff, with parent leaders. I'm going to continue to connect with community in a number of different ways. I've been focusing on the importance of 3 key words, and connecting is the first word. And I've reflected on the last 2 years, and for all kinds of reasons that we don't need to repeat, connection has been tough. And when I was speaking to parent and caregiver leaders last night, I shared the comment that we've got to figure out a way to get back to asking a question in order to understand what's happening before making a statement or a judgment without maybe all of the information. Another piece is that maybe we have made a mistake and absolutely we need to apologize. Or maybe there's all kinds of misinformation that's driving a disconnect. And we've got to figure out ways, and I've shared this before, to connect again, because without those relationships, we can't serve our students. We need to celebrate, and we heard it tonight. I mean, the 2 students who are here tonight represent so much that is excellent in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. And sometimes, unfortunately, when you think back on the last year, in this room, we might be communicating to our community that we aren't about academic excellence, but we are, and we have lots of student examples to show it, that we're not about accountability, but we are, and we are actually trying to create tools and strategies to make that even clearer. And what I'm saying by that is we've got to figure out multiple ways to connect, and I've heard us say that when we talked about the communication and community engagement report, so that true and real understanding can happen. We're not going to get anywhere for our students if our students see us at odds. We're not going to help our students learn if they see adults struggling. So we got to find other spaces that allow us to truly and deeply understand each other. And we need to celebrate what's amazing. And then lastly, we need to create, because we're not standing still. The world's not standing still. So we've got to keep moving to ensure that our students are actually getting the life and learning experiences that they need. And this is where I will close my reflections by saying, I know it might sound repetitive that we keep trying to repeat certain aspects of our strategic directions, but I've decided that we're going to keep repeating them because there are aspects of it that seem to be misunderstood. And it's simply this: our commitment is to deep learning, innovation, and academic excellence, period. We can only meet that goal if our kids feel safe, accepted, supported, and respected. That's why we have an equity pillar. That's why we have a social emotional learning pillar, period. There are all kinds of things that are talked about regarding that direction, and I'm simply trying to put it in its rightful frame. Things are going to happen in our community because we're a human community. Challenges are going to emerge. Tensions are going to arise. We can't control that. But what message I want to share as we begin the school year is, to the extent that we can actually trust each other as partners enough to ask questions, seek to understand, and really try to find common ground where there can be some, I actually believe we'll be a healthy community, because I do believe we are already, but we'll be healthier. I do believe we not only will be a great role model for our students, but we'll also help them in terms of their endeavors. And at the end of the day, we're going to have that much more to celebrate, because whenever we see students anywhere, in a boardroom, in a school, on a stage, in a yard where they're doing great things, which is what we see in 36 sites, I don't know about you, but I'm guessing I can say it for you as well. There's nothing better. So my goal for this 22-23 school year as superintendent, working with you, our board, working with all of our partners who I see in this room and those who aren't in this room, is we can turn a page on some of the stuff that we had no control over, but actually caused us a lot of tension, and refocus our efforts on connecting, celebrating, and creating, and get to that strategic direction where our kids' learning is front and center. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Malloy. Moving on now to item 10, action items and public hearings. 10.1, consideration of adoption of the 2022-23 annual resolutions. Christine.
Yes, thank you, President Mintz. Just a reminder, at the last board workshop, you agreed with the resolutions that are being brought forth this evening. We're also in the process of rewriting and adding new resolutions that we're going to bring forth to you at our October 4th board workshop. So there are some that are not on this list, but we have not forgotten them. We just have to do that work at the board workshop. So I just wanted to remind the board of that.
Okay. I do have a speaker card on the annual resolutions. Mike Arata.
I oppose and recommend rejection of Resolution 16. It regards a day of silence to be conducted next April 14th, thereby once again to disrupt normal classroom activity and misuse taxpayer funds. For starters, both of the two whereas clauses with supposed data about the experience of LGBT students are badly skewed and unreliable. One says that national data shows half of all LGBT students reporting verbal, sexual, or physical harassment at school. The other claims national data showing nearly 30% of LGBT students report missing at least one day of school for fear of personal safety. The source for both claims is a report contrived and published by GLSEN. That's GLSEN, an abbreviation for what was originally called the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. Though published in 2016, the report actually used data from 2013, also assembled by GLSEN. In other words, the assertions are dated, and the source of the cited findings is a policy-conflicted interest group, not a neutral research organization. So it turns out that the data set was not, in fact, all LGBT students, but instead involved 7,900 self-selected individuals via what the report identified as, quote, outreach through national, regional, and local organizations that provide services to or advocate on behalf of LGBTQ youth, and number two, targeted outreach on social media. In other words, the report had a substantial baked-in research bias. And though another whereas clause says the Day of Silence itself is conducted at more than 10,000 U.S. schools, middle schools rather, high schools, colleges, and universities, only 7,900 students participated. Moreover, and as I've said previously, what are the criteria for allowing an external agenda to interfere with normal classroom activity? Who and what else can or should receive such special treatment? How about a day of silence for those affected by multiple sclerosis, or cerebral palsy, or cancer, or spinal bifida, or those who can't see or hear, for those who genuinely suffer in silence? Instead, you're planning to allow disruption, once again, of a taxpayer-funded school day to conduct a special interest event that was orchestrated cynically in the early 90s by GLSEN founder and notorious homosexual activist Kevin Jennings. Now to continue catering to a politically organized special interest that is itself far from silent in the present era.
Okay, board members, any questions or comments relative to the resolution list? Laura.
Yeah, I'd like to propose changes to two resolutions, just minor changes, I think. So with the the resolution for the National Native American Heritage Month. I propose that we change on the whereas statement 1 and whereas statement 4, we change Native peoples to Indigenous peoples. I think that that's it's a little more reflective of who we're speaking about. I know the title has Native American, and when it's a proper noun, that makes sense, but I would like in a more general form for it to say Indigenous peoples. And then with the Mental Health Awareness Month resolution, in the statement number 3, where it reads, children and families are dealing with the long overdue societal reckoning with police violence against African Americans, a spike in anti-Asian hate crimes. And then I would propose removing the and, significantly higher than average death rates linked to COVID-19 among Latino communities, and then adding, and the mistreatment and stigmatization of the LGBTQ plus community and society. I think that, I pulled out some statistics, some data from, and this is per the Trevor Project National Survey of LGBTQ plus youth mental health. 50% of LGBTQ plus youth ages 13 to 17 have seriously considered suicide, and 18% have attempted suicide in the past year. And I think when we're talking about mental health awareness, and we're making a point in our resolution to point out specific affinity groups, that we also include the LGBTQ community.
Does anyone have any objection to those two upgrades? Okay, something we can add to those. Any other?
I feel the need to say something about the Day of Silence resolution. That resolution came to us from our GSA students saying, please do this. And they said, please do this for many years in a row before we did it. So while the origins of the Day of Silence may have come from GLSEN, the request for our district to honor the Day of Silence came from our students. And I just feel like it's important to say that.
Thank you. And unfortunately, the kinds of numbers that were being suggested are probably higher if it was reported today. So I agree. Any other questions, comments? If not, can we get a motion to approve the resolution list?
I make a motion to approve the resolution list with the 2 changes to Native American Month and Mental Illness Awareness Month.
A second.
Pick one of us.
Pick one.
Pick one.
Doesn't matter which one.
Okay, I heard Susanna first. The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 10.2 is consideration of adoption of resolution number 5, 2223, approval of provisional internship permit requests. Mr. Ajinski, this is ongoing.
Yes, it is. This is one of those resolutions that has unfortunately become all too familiar with the board as the teacher shortage has persisted and deepened over the years. So we're requesting tonight board approval to hire the 10 listed individuals on the resolution under provisional internship permits. Again, that's a form of an emergency credential that just allows those individuals more time to meet subject matter competency requirements in order to enter an internship program. You'll note that by and large, those positions there, those individuals are being hired in generally difficult to staff assignments, special education, science, and math primarily. Okay, so we are recommending approval of the resolution as presented.
Any questions or comments? Can I have a motion, please, to accept the provisional internship permit request?
So moved.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, item 10.3, 10.5 all relate to school facility development fees. 10.3 is consideration of adoption of the school facility fee justification report justifying an increase in level 1 statutory school facility development fees. Mr. Hillman.
Yes, thank you, President Mintz. This item, as you mentioned, is a really consecutive 10-3, 10-4, and 10-5. For 10-3, basically what this is asking the board to accept the facility report that was prepared by school facility consultants, which is the perfunctory statutory step that we have to do before asking the board to take action on something like this. If you, I believe you were all given a copy of the report, and in the report on page 5 in the executive summary is the summary of the conclusions from the report that do allow the district to adopt the higher level 1 fee that the school allocation board approved back earlier this year. And as the item mentions, this would go into effect in 60 days if you were to approve it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, the item before us on 10.3 is adoption of the school facility fee justification report that's dated May 2022. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move approval of the report.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 10.4 is a public hearing on the adoption of resolution number 6, 2223, establishing an increase in level 1 school facility development fees. I'll open the public hearing. Have we received any input on this from the public?
We have not.
Okay, we'll close that public hearing. Moving on to item 10.5 is consideration of adoption of resolution number 6, 2223, establishing an increase to the level 1 school facility development fees. Any questions or comments from board members? Anything from staff? In that case, can I have a motion to approve, adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 10.6 is consideration of adoption of resolution number 22 of the 22-23 school year, approving budget revisions due to adoption of the 2022-23 state budget and approving routine budget revisions. Mr. Hillman and Evan.
And Evan, yes, I'm going to introduce Evan right now. Thank you, President Mintz, trustees, superintendent, and community. I'd like to introduce Evan Miller, our Executive Director of Business Services. He and I are going to tag team this presentation this evening and do a little trade here in just a second. The 45-day revision for our adopted budget is a required thing. Evan's going to get into that in just a second, but here's our agenda for this evening. We'll keep it as brief as we can. We're going to go over the state budget process, the enacted state budget impact and how it affects SRVUSD, updates to our revenues and our expenditures since the last time we saw you in June, and then we're going to talk about some future budget considerations and some next steps in the timeline.
Good evening, trustees. So tonight we have our 45-day budget revision. This is required by state law to update our adopted budget based on the enacted state budget. This year there were some changes, and those are the ones that we're going to be highlighting for you tonight. This slide shows the planning factors that we use as we build our budget. It comes from school services. It's kind of the standard. Many of the districts across the state use it, and so we just want to be very clear that these are the factors that we use when we build our budget. These are all items that were included in our adopted budget in June. So these are things that we knew were going to be in there, and so were included. The 6.56% COLA, some ADA mitigation and special ed. Just wanted to highlight here that 6.56 COLA resulted in about $11.7 million of increased revenue as compared to the prior year, and so that was already in the budget that we approved back in June. These are some of the major funding provisions that were not included in our adopted budget. So the base grant increase of 6.28%, this is, the state heard the calls around increase the base. They had a bunch of extra revenue, and so this is where they put it. It is ongoing and unrestricted funds. The ELOP funding, so after school expanded learning, was increased from the adopted budget. The LCFF calculation, ADA, basically lots of districts across the state had much lower ADA last year because of COVID outbreaks, and so this gives districts some relief by using 2019-20 ADA to enrollment ratio and applying that to last year's enrollment. TK classroom ratio was funded at $383 million, resulting in about 2,813 per TK ADA. The big one here, $8 billion for the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, is a one-time restricted block grant, and it is allocated based on unduplicated students. So we did not see, this was looked like a big one for us in June and came in a much smaller amount for our district. The Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant is based on ADA. It is one time. It is unrestricted. We can use it for operational costs, and so this is a significant increase, but it is one time. And then the home to school transportation funding is a reimbursement of our transportation expenditures at about 60%. So it is a big increase from what we were getting before from the state. So the next slide shows all of those things. These are the changes in terms of the impact to SRVUSD. We added those columns on the right to show which ones are ongoing and which ones are restricted. So the big one here, the base grant increase, fully ongoing and unrestricted, $19.1 million. That homeschool transportation, ongoing, it's technically not restricted, but again, it's only 60% of what we already spend on our transportation costs. Those are mostly for those are only for special ed students. And so what that will basically do is reduce our contribution that we make to the special ed programs. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, smaller impact, I said that before. That Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant can be used for operational costs. We will be building a plan and coming back with some ideas on how to use that. It will continue to affect us because we'll continue to use it 3 prior years. So last year we'll always use a higher ADA than what we actually reported.
Okay. And the TK, the bump for TK is also included in there. So you quoted an amount of money for the TK that the state allocated to us. Does that square with how much it's costing us to do the additional TK?
That's a good question. This is the first year in which we're doing the expanded birthdays for TK. I think one of the interesting things will be in the additional staff member, because we have a second adult in those classrooms right now. And as of right now, the state has given us a dollar amount. We will have to analyze it after this year and see how it's matching. My hunch is that it probably will not cover 2 staff members per classroom, but that's what's required by law. So we will do that. And we will essentially be funding that mandate ourselves from our reserves.
So that would affect our budget going forward then?
Yes, it could.
Other questions?
So I just want to kind of clarify the home to school transportation funding, because that's a new, right, a new ongoing funding that we're getting. So you had said that it's not like the 3.8, we're not going to be able to offer more busing to our students, right? Because currently we're busing our special education students.
Right. So our district discontinued home to school transportation several years ago, maybe more than a decade ago, I think. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. One of the reasons that the district made the decision at the time was that the state was not reimbursing the full or even most of the cost of home to school transportation. And so the district, like many districts in the state, have opted to move away from home to school and have transitioned to providing transportation services to students who have IEPs. That said, the home to school transportation reimbursement rate is now been increased to 60%. It was actually stuck at a dollar amount that I think was set in like 1980 or something. It was kind of ridiculous. So now they're going to reimburse us for up to 60%. We've done the calculation and we know that that's going to yield about $3.8 million of money we will not have to contribute towards special education costs. What that means is that $3.8 million is now sitting in our general fund where we want it to be, so because we can spend it on other things. So in essence, the state reimbursing us for up to 60% of our actual expenditures for transportation, however we do it, yields what will be, it will feel like we got more money in the general fund because we won't be contributing as much.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So we're being reimbursed actually for the costs that we've already.
That's right. And one thing that we will be doing is looking at the requirements for any future home to school requirements that are coming out of the state. Right now, it's not required, but they do want us to do a plan, and that has to be approved by all of you and submitted in the spring. And so when we get more information on that, we'll be communicating and talking more about it. And at this moment, the state does not require home to school transportation for us, but they are signaling that they would like to do that for certain grade levels. And they would like to do that for certain populations of students, as an example, for unduplicated students. So that may be where the state would like to go. As of right now, those bills are actually in the legislature, and most of them have stalled because they're at the end of their term right now. So we're going to keep a close eye on that, because an expansion of a required transportation mandate puts a very, very big strain on our system. That means more drivers, more trainers, more buses, probably a bigger yard. I mean, it starts to grow very quickly.
Right.
What we would have to do and the amount of money it would take to do it, to the degree that we would be able to do it in-house. It is a pretty big project.
The ELOP at this point is fully funded, so we will not be funding it out of our general fund.
Yes, and that was another thing that we set aside in the budget in June because we didn't know how that was going to land. So we had money set aside from general fund just in case it wasn't fully funded. And the way that they ended up funding it was a two-tier system. If you read the legislation, districts with a certain unduplicated count over a certain percentage got more money per student. We only have about 9 to 10% of our students as are in that category. So we didn't get the higher dollar amount, but it was still better than what they were originally proposing. So it's still a win for us.
One other thing about the equity liaisons, the amount that's in the budget for the equity liaisons, is that still the same now? Did we change the number?
The number went down. And
I'll take this one just because it's part of a bigger piece. So I'll take this as an opportunity to communicate a couple of things. So one, the number was 15 FTE and now it's 10 FTE. So it's gone down from about 1.9 million to the 1.2. I'm checking for my numbers. Secondly, we have revisited the model, and I'm going to try to briefly explain that equity liaisons, MTSS liaisons, the term liaison is to help our staff create the conditions that promote effective learning. And the reason I'm stating that is because there's some misunderstanding in our community that somehow liaisons actually teach students. That's not the purpose. The purpose is that they will support our staff to create the type of learning conditions that we've been talking about. We also know that whenever we are doing this work, we don't want equity to be something that just a few people are concerned about. Because as I said it earlier tonight, what's important is that every student feeling safe, accepted, respected, and included, and strong socially and emotionally, allows them to learn, and learning is also enhanced when the instruction, the assessment, and the intervention is precise. So that's what the liaisons are going to work side by each. We wanted to rethink the model for a couple of reasons. One, we were very clear in the spring and we struggled a bit in the fall, and for the most part, we're almost there, but there is a staffing shortage and we needed to be sure our classrooms are filled first. Two, we want to be sure that each feeder pattern, so each high school pattern of middle schools and elementary schools, has the equivalent of 2.5. equity liaisons, working with MTSS liaisons, and they'll provide that service not just to their school, but also support broadly. 3, we're looking at ways to connect with staff who are willing to assist with this work and will work with our union colleagues regarding possibly providing some stipends and such for that particular effort. So the model started with 15. We moved to 10. We feel that with the MTSS liaisons, it will provide the service effectively. It is for the creation of conditions to promote the learning. And lastly, because again, I don't know if this is fully understood, there are other resources we use as well, such as our counselors, which are in this budget, such as our support time, such as curriculum. And I just want to share it in this particular time because I think it's our job, staff working with you, and if you would also assist us whenever you are out in the community to continue to clarify what these important resources are. So thank you for indulging me. I went broader than your question, but I hope I've answered it in the process.
Other questions, comments? Laura?
I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to our entire community for the advocacy that many of us participated in this last, I guess, 6-9 months, really explaining to those legislators why it was important to raise the base and to have those unrestricted funds that go right into our general fund and to move a little bit away from the one-time funding. I know they still struggled a little bit, but it seemed like it was a significant shift in a sense. So I think we're now able to reap those rewards of that hard work, and I just really appreciate it.
In an effort to find more funding for the district, we're always looking for more help. There is a measure on the ballot in November that has to do with arts. And at one point, before we had the information about what the state was going to do as far as the larger budget, we were reluctant as a board to support that ballot measure. But at this point, I would like to see us put our full support behind it, because it would mean, even though it's categorical, it would mean more funding into our coffers. So if there's a way that staff could bring us back some information about maybe about the ballot measure and about how we could support it in November, I would personally really like to see that.
And if I could just jump in, and thank you for that, Trustee Clark. We can certainly bring the information back from my seat. I think that when we look at the dollars that we've received, we are grateful because it's a much better position than we could have potentially predicted before. But there still are challenges that we need to work through. And that proposition from our staff perspective is a good one now that we see the final numbers for our community to get behind. So we will be sure to bring you that information at the next board meeting. And then if you want to pass some form of resolution so that we are able then to engage the broader community, we will make that happen in September.
One of the things on there that I'd be very interested in finding out, because I have not followed it, is hopefully not as much focus only on unduplicated counts like the Learning Recovery Emergency Grant process, but something that actually, not to take away from others, but want to make sure that we are included in this, because it may be that a resolution might need to point more in that direction than simply approving it or supporting it. So, once we see the actual language it's shared with us, we could make more of that.
Yeah, we'll bring you the information, but at this point, the proposition is not based on unduplicated counts, and it is additional money. So it's not taking money from other places within Prop 98 and such and just moving it over, at least at this point. So if what we'll bring to you is a proposal around advocating for what is actually there so that it doesn't change from my perspective, but we will bring that next meeting. Very good. Thank you.
Others? I just had one follow-up on the LOP. It's not directly budget, but it is. How are we doing in terms of particularly our unduplicated participation in that, or where we need to be to make sure that we don't lose grant dollars.
Well, I can speak to the numbers and I'll let Danny speak to the grant dollars. So right about now, we have roughly about 400 students, about 390 that are unduplicated enrolled in the program, which is roughly around 700 students. Our total number of unduplicated in the district is a little closer to 1,248-ish. But I'll let Danny go ahead and speak to kind of how that impacts dollars.
So the one thing to note is in this year with the new dollar amount per student, the two-tier system for certain districts, that they also made this an implementation year. So there's no penalty this year. Original legislation a year ago was that this was the penalty year. That's not the case now. We have this year to get up and running, so we're okay. So even though right now we're below where we would like to be with having 50% of the students in the program, what Evan and I were just talking about yesterday is to what degree will our auditors be looking for evidence that we offered the program to all or 50, to meet those requirements? Did we meet 50%? Did we offer it to 50%? Do you have to have 50% in, or is it? So those kinds of details we will take this year and work out, because all auditors are now having to do this. And so there will be, in addition to the audit guide, and when we learn what it is, we'll be able to meet it. So I was just talking to Christine's staff yesterday also about this, that we start gathering some of the data now so that we're prepared for when we have to give it to the auditor for the reporting period.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification, because, you know, hopefully as a first year program, it provides for an opportunity for word of mouth and, you know, being able to demonstrate some success in that program to get more people seeing what it is and hopefully participate. Good.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Related to the thing we were talking about related to TK a little while ago, and about is the extra funding we get in the base for TK covering the second employee? I think that's something that's really important for us to track, because I think that would be a very easy advocacy point that, you know, could be part of any of the groups we're part of, whether it's suburban schools or CSBA or just talking with our local legislator, because it's kind of a no-brainer and it affects everyone that should not be a unfunded or partially unfunded mandate.
One thing I would just add to that too is that the legislature has, I believe it's either intent language or it's the current language, that the ratio of student to adult will decrease if funding is available next year or the next year after that. So they have signaled what they would like to see. And I agree with you that advocacy would be easy to say, you gave us dollars for the TK students, thank you for that. However, if it's so similar to a kinder student, you're not accounting for the other adult body in the room. We need to talk about that. And I think that they would probably be amenable, assuming that the funding is available. And I think that's going to be the key legislative piece.
Because I really think if the state is committed to the LCFF formula, anything we can do as school districts statewide to hold them accountable to the formula, that the formula matches what their philosophies are, and not just, you know, outside of everything going, oh no, these students and these students. And you've created a formula that was based on rationale. Now make your additions according to the formula. Don't do all this extra stuff that looks like categoricals.
All right. No other questions, comments. The item before us is adoption of the resolution approving the budget revisions. 45-day revision.
I'll move the item.
We have a second?
Oh, second. Kelly, you got it. You were quick.
We had three of them all.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Student Board Member Iapin.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great. Thank you, Danny and Evan, for your participation and everything that's going on in your department. This is probably the most positive 45-day thing that we've seen in years. Yeah, exactly. It's been a long time. Item 10.7, consideration request to adjust the daily rate of pay for substitute teachers for the 2022-2023 school year. Mr. Rajinski.
Thank you, President Mintz. So the Human Resources Department actually surveys all of the school districts in both Contra Costa and Alameda County twice each year. We do it once around November, December, and we do it once again at the end of the school year, usually starts in May, and we complete our survey in June. And the purpose of that is to basically determine how the rates that we offer substitute teachers is compares with other school districts, is competitive and sufficient to recruit individuals to come and substitute for us. Because of course, when those rates are sufficient in terms of how they compare to other districts, substitutes are going to be more likely to come and work for us, and we'll be able to satisfy our daily substitute needs. When we last completed, and we've had this conversation over the last couple of years now, when we completed our most recent survey of school districts in June, what we learned was that school district substitute rates, as they evolved from mid-year to the end of the year, had either increased in some school districts in response to the substitute shortage, or that districts were planning to bring forward requests to their board to increase rates for the 2022-2023 school year. So in response to what we learned, we're bringing this request to you this evening to increase rates essentially by $50 per day above all of the rates that the board approved last year at this time for the 2021-22 school year. So last year, the rates for daily substitutes, and that's specifically those who hold a substitute permit but no other credential, span from $175 to $225 per day. And for retirees, they span from $200 to $250 per day. We're recommending this year $225 per day. We're recommending for this year that the span be $225 to $275 for non-credentialed substitutes, and for retirees that the rates be increased to $250 or $275 per day. As the board is also well aware, our greatest need for substitute teachers takes place typically on Mondays and Fridays. And there are certain assignments, specifically special day class assignments, that are oftentimes more challenging to place substitute teachers in than, for instance, general education classrooms. So we want to incentivize individuals to substitute in those assignments and on days where we need more subs. Remember, substitutes are on-call employees. They have the ability on any given day to choose to work for us or not, right? And just as it is for employees, sometimes a benefit to not be at work on a Monday or a Friday. The same holds true for substitutes. So what we're recommending is that the board approve a $25 additional payment be provided to all substitutes who substitute for us on Mondays and on Fridays when they render such service, and in special day classes as well. So that's what we're recommending. We're recommending that these rates be in place for the entire 2022-23 school year. And next year, again, we will conduct our survey to see how our rates compare to other school districts, and we will accordingly recommend or not recommend an adjustment based upon what appears to be kind of the commanding wage or the prevailing wage in the area. What we're looking at, again, even though we our survey comprises all Alameda and Contra Costa school districts, we're looking most closely at how we're comparing with our strongest competitors. We know which districts those are, primarily Dublin Unified School District, Pleasanton Unified School District, to a lesser extent, Mount Diablo Unified, and some of the districts along the 24 corridor. Okay, so that's our recommendation. That's the rationale for our recommendation, and we ask for board approval this evening. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve a request to adjust daily rates for pay for substitute teachers for this year?
So moved. Second. The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Student Board Member Iapan?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. 10.8, consideration revision to Board of Education meeting calendar for 2022-23 school year.
And we are requesting your approval to move the February date from Valentine's Day to the 21st. It was a request of yours. We thought it needed to be on the 14th last year when this was approved. We were able to look again at the compliance calendar and the 21st works just fine.
I move approval.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
10.9 is board policies, updating policy titles and policy deletion.
So this is just some housekeeping, if I can call it that, where we'd like to be sure that the policy titles align with our colleagues at CSBA, and one deletion because it makes reference to legislation that no longer is in place.
I just had one question on this. On the items having to do with drug and alcohol testing for commercial driver's licenses, the new term specifies school bus drivers. Are there other commercial driver license required employees that this also relates to?
Sorry, I don't know the answer to that. And Keith, Mr. Rajinski just stepped away. We can certainly pause this one and bring it back at a later time and gather more information.
I'm just wondering, because we do have garbage truck drivers and other delivery folks. And so I just noticed that for school bus drivers being specific to the title now, as opposed to commercial driver license requirements.
I would have to check. I don't know why it's different in the recommended new title. And I could guess, but I don't want to guess.
All right. We could go ahead.
Here's Keith.
Okay, we'll blame
We have a question for you.
Keith, as your
We don't need any more information.
No, I
No,
timed
you don't.
it. I timed it exactly for that reason. So Keith, we're working on the updating policy titles and policy deletions. My question had to do with drug and alcohol testing. The new titles on the ones having to do with those topics are for school bus drivers. And the initial one was for commercial driver's license requirements. And I'm wondering about those who have commercial driver license requirements that aren't school bus drivers, and the name difference. So our garbage truck drivers, our delivery folks, should the name be changed, or are those covered some other way?
So the proposed change is once again, I don't have that in front of me.
I'm
Tell me
sorry.
again,
So
please.
it says drug and alcohol testing for school bus drivers.
And it's being recommended to be changed to commercial
No.
vehicle drivers,
No,
just the
it's
opposite.
Currently commercial driver's license requirements, and it's changing to school bus drivers. And I'm just wondering if.
So if I could just frame this,
Yes.
maybe we have to take it back.
Yes, I think maybe we do.
The purpose of this housekeeping item was simply to use the exact titles that CSBA would suggest. If our local practice needs to be different than CSBA, we by all means, you reserve the right for that. So I think that what has started as a housekeeping needs to be taken back so that we can clarify if from our perspective, we need it to remain what it has been.
Yeah, I agree, but I will say, in looking at this right now, drug and alcohol testing for all persons subject to commercial driver's license requirements, that would include all of our bus drivers, and then those beyond who are our non-bus drivers. So that actually is more all-inclusive.
That's our current title.
So we're going to take it
That's
back.
just- okay.
We're going to take it
opposed-
back
okay.
and we're going to, and I think this is just so I can share this with the board. I think that we may need to revisit when there are reasons not to be aligned with CSBA, because we're struggling with this a little bit too. We don't want to fall off too far if we're going to utilize that service, but this is probably the second or third time where it's emerged where we're not necessarily sure that it works for us. So we're going to need to take that back and revisit.
Yeah.
Could we approve all but
That
that
was
one?
what I was going to suggest. Can I make that motion? I move
I move that we approve all of them except the two related to commercial. Three related to commercial drivers versus bus drivers.
I'll second.
Thank you.
And it could be that the requirements are different and you actually need two policies for each.
Yeah, that might be.
Thank you. The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
And thank you for that. Because I know it's something that we're going to be seeing that on a regular basis now. Okay, moving on to board member reports. Let me start with our student board member. Any meetings or anything else that you wanted to add to your report tonight?
If we do have time, I would love to touch on the subcommittees in the Student Senate. Oh, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the Student Senate has umbrella groups. We had 4 last year. 3 of them will remain the same. One of them is increasing student voice, increasing inclusivity on campuses. The third is mental health, mental awareness, and the fourth that was just established at our last meeting and was voted on was just increasing awareness on LGBTQ experiences and providing the resources necessary for students to thrive. So I just thought that was something I wanted to mention, especially with the discussions we had earlier with the Day of Silence and other resolutions, that is a topic that students do deeply care about. That was reflected in the Student Senate vote that we took. Yeah, some of the other propositions for new committees will be included in the other subcommittees, so they'll be encompassed into those broader topics. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been actually lots of great stuff at the start of the new school year. I know summer is not quite over, especially with the weather, but yeah, but I know things have been busy already. Really enjoy, I think, meeting our new teacher, staff, classified employees and administrators, right? At some of the events, I think most of us have attended, like the new staff breakfast, I think you mentioned the management retreats, and then the SEIU, our labor partner, SEIU barbecue. And I have also attended a couple of meetings with our parent groups at the SRVEF Education Foundation board meeting. They've started meeting, as well as was able to attend the Council of PTA board member retreat. So I had a lot of great kind of reconnecting before a school year starts, or actually at the start of school year. And that's, yesterday afternoon, I think we were invited to the leadership training communication. That was very interesting too. So, thanks.
So I was sad that I missed the retreat, but I was at the top of the Matterhorn. So I don't know which was better, but I was really sad because I heard that it was really great. But I did go to the barbecue and I enjoyed that. Seeing our labor partners and being able to talk to everybody and also find out, where they're at and what they need. And they were very forthright in telling us. So I appreciated that. We hear about the teacher shortage, and we certainly do have one, but it was so wonderful to greet all of the new teachers at the new teacher breakfast. It was really inspiring for me, and I wanted to get around to talk to every one of them, and I couldn't, but I did talk to some of them, and they're all very excited about coming to our district. So that was really, really great to see. It helped my morale a lot. Other than that, the meeting yesterday that Dr. Malloy did, the leadership training, was an excellent way with our partners in the community, the PTAs and the Ed Fund presidents from all of the schools. It was really well attended. That was a really great way to start the year. And I really appreciated everything that you said, and I think they did too. And it really set the tone for having a great year this year. So I appreciated that. I haven't applied for a classified job, but I have signed on for noon duty for quite a few days in the next month. So I'll be out at the elementary and the middle schools, playing with the kids, and I really do enjoy that. It's just, you know, fitting it into a schedule sometimes is challenging, but I'm looking forward to that, and also starting my site visits once I give our principals time to get their feet on the ground in some of the schools that I'm liaison for. So that's it for me.
And without repeating too much, I did want to mention with the admin retreat that we had in August, I just want to say a thank you to the students. I know we mentioned it briefly, but to the students that came out for the student panel, taking time out of your summer to speak truth to power. It was wonderful to hear all of the things all of the insight that you shared with us, and I think we all really appreciated that. And then again, the SEIU barbecue, it was great to meet folks, meet bus drivers that have come back from retirement to help us. You know, I think as we see this, the struggles that we're having in terms of hiring certificated and classified staff, you know, to really see those that are kind of coming back from our community. And again, with the new teacher breakfast, I think Laura Finko had asked everyone who grew up in the school district and came back to teach to stand up, and it felt like it was half of the room. And when I see those types of things, I'm just so, again, I'm so grateful for the community that we have, and the love for our school district that exists. So I just really appreciate that, and that was wonderful to see. We have a City of San Ramon liaison meeting in a couple of weeks, and then I'm looking forward to back to school nights. And then I just lastly just wanted to thank first I want to say that I hope everyone had a restful and restorative summer. I feel like I did to a certain extent, although we did get a new puppy. I don't know what that was about, but anyway, she's great. And I want to say thank you to everyone. You know, again, beginning of school year, more transitions on top of all the transitions that we've had to deal with over these last couple of years, and all the fatigue that we've had built up in that stacking of things and change that has happened. And I know this school year there's been more, and I just really appreciate everyone's patience and understanding and engagement in these transitions so that we can do what's right for the students. So thank you.
Well, I really enjoyed this year's management retreat. I wanted to give another shout out to all the folks that helped plan that. I think such an important addition to Dr. Malloy's introductory piece was framing the 6 strategic directions in the triangle that we have seen and that was shared with the leadership group yesterday. Because I think it shows that we came out with a good idea, we came out with good marketing, but that we keep working on how we communicate it better. And so I was glad to see that was shared in yesterday's presentation. I look forward to it being shared more broadly because I think it will really help. It was also amazing to see how many new administrators we have. That was like really stuck out to me. And then I'm sorry I missed a lot of the beginning of the year things. So 1 week I got to go away on a vacation to visit my son in Colorado was when all that great stuff was happening. So hope to make up for some of those missed opportunities. But in tonight's packet, the list of certificated staff who are not returning was quite sobering also. So in addition to, you know, all this talk about teacher shortage, I mean, it was right there in front of us in that packet. And I think it informs a lot of the work we have to do this year. Looking forward to the PTA council meeting tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to setting up some site visits with my liaisons.
Very good. And just very quickly, I really also enjoyed all of the beginning of school year meetings and events. I've got Facilities Oversight Committee next week, Street Smarts next week, and liaison with Town of Danville next week. Looking forward to those meetings. The one other quick thing I want to say is I want to thank Ms. Ordway and Ms. Hurd for their interest in continuing on this board. We're still waiting to see final numbers of who's going to be running for District 1 position. However, I want to thank both of you for your commitment up to this point and your commitment going forward. It means a lot, I know, to the community that you're continuing to step up and serve. So I know it's still a few months away, but just keep going. With that, we're adjourned. The board will continue meeting in closed session this evening.